Hey guys, it's Tehi. We're gonna make another raid video about how to get better at WoW, and we're gonna focus on Liquid Reminders today. Liquid Reminders is a weakor that was, or an add-on, I guess, more so, that was made during Nurubar Palace by obviously Team Liquid during Race to World First. And essentially, what this is, it's an add-on that allows you to set things up uh, for every single fight so that you know before you get there, especially when it's the first time you ever get there in a fight, exactly how you need to play the game. And what you can use this for is to remind you to use defensives, remind you to hold your offensive CDs, remind you to use your offensive CDs. Um, remind you that if you get this mechanic, it goes over here, so on and so forth. This is a tool that I am a very big advocate for. I think it's amazing, and it really helps you just focus playing the game and not have to think. Obviously, I raid lead, and I have a lot of other things that I'm thinking about and focusing on, and not necessarily always my individual play. So this has been a huge help for me to remind me when I need to be using a wall, or when I need to hold CDs, or whatever it might be. So we're going to run through this. I'm not going to show you how to install it. There's a whole other thing for this. How do you get this? There is a payment option, and I believe there is a free option for getting this now. I'm not quite sure. Shout out to Bart. He's the one that made it. Obviously, incredibly impressive add-on, and you should definitely be using this. If you are not, I guarantee you it will make you better at the game. So, to open this panel up, you're just going to do /lr in-game, once you have it installed, obviously, or you can do /tr. Both of them work, and it just stands for /lr is liquid reminders, tr is timeline reminders. Yeah, so we're gonna look at Mugsy because I think this is a really good fight to abuse this add-on for. We're set to Mythic, and you can see I already have some things in here, and it's just my offensive CDs and how I should be using them. I deleted all of my mechanical and defensive stuff for this so that I can show you how to do them. But one of the things that I would tell you as a raid leader, that if you were my raider on my raid team, I would tell you that the worst thing you can do first is go look at your offensive CDs and have a plan for offensive CDs. Now, there's going to be some fights where there's a huge phase 1 damage check, and maybe you do need to have them set up, but that's not every single fight, and I would definitely get in the habit of setting other things up, how to handle mechanics, how to use your defensives. If your raid team doesn't normally put, like, hey, you need to use Healthstone here, hey, you need to use Health Pot here, and we're using that instead of a defensive, or instead of a raid CD, definitely put those things in. Especially, like, if you die over and over again to the same mechanic on a fight, that's your cue to be like, okay, I need to remind myself I have to use a personal here, or I have to commit Healthstone or Health Pot here, whatever it might be. So let's get into, like, how I would use this, not as a raid leader, but how I would use this as just a player. So there's a couple things here, like the Goblin Guided Rocket, where your raid leader should be setting up a script in your ER or MRT that basically says who's assigned to Rocket Soak 1 and all the other odd ones following from there, and who's assigned to all the even ones. So you don't have to, like, go in here and say, like, hey, I'm in Soak 1, or hey, you're not in this Soak. That's built into the Liquid weakors, assuming you're already using them. Obviously, there's Northern Sky as well. I'm not super familiar with theirs, but I would assume they have something similar, if not the exact same, built into theirs. So I would definitely tell you to go look into other weakors in the weakor packet for the individual bosses, and go see, like, hey, I don't want to put redundant things and waste my time putting things in that are already going to show it for me. Another example is, like, the Gallywix frontal. In the Liquid weakors, it does tell you, like, bait frontal now, and it gives you, like, a 5-second heads up. You don't need to go put in your Gallywix, hey, go bait frontal, because you're just going to double down, and maybe it gets confusing. Maybe you need that. You know yourself better than I know you. But for me, that seems redundant and a waste of my time. So I'm not going to do that. But the first mechanic I do care about is this double whammy shot. So why do I care to do this about double whammy shot? Double whammy shot is the little line that you can use to blow up a mine. In Mythic, you obviously don't do it that way, but it's the one that the tank soaks and takes a dot from it. It's important for me, for my players, to do this, and I would hope you would agree that when you get to a time in the fight that you've never gotten to before, you can abuse this tool to remind you how to play it, right? So, for instance, I'm going to go to double whammy shot, and I'm going to change this back to text. And what I'm going to put in here, put on metal, because it's going to go onto metal side for the way my raid team does this fight. Put on metal. So what's going to happen here is it's going to have a text that shows up on my screen, and it's also going to do a text-to-speech that tells me audibly in my headphones, put on metal. And I can do a test. It works. And I'm going to change this to white because I want this to be white for this fight, and we're going to get into that in a second. We can test one more time. Yep, I have it set up the way I want it to be now.
Put on metal.
And then we have the spray and pray, which is another frontal. And for this, what we do is we actually put this on dirt. So put on dirt. Put on dirt. Change this back to white. And you can do this make default thing. Why you would use that is if you're going to put like your celestial alignment in this example all across this timeline multiple times, you can do make default, and you can just double click and it'll put there on it again. So before we do that, test, put on dirt, it's working.
Put on dirt.
Make this default so it's faster going forward, and then if I want to, I'll show you, making it default, it defaults to doing this again. Now I don't want to do that there, so we're going to delete it. The biggest thing that I would say is great for this fight is the jails. Okay, so there's a lot of weird directional things that tells you to go left, tells you to go right, tells you to go far right, tells you to go far left, whatever it might be on this fight. That for me specifically, I would want my raid team to show up knowing what is left, what is right for the jails, for the icicles, and everything in between. So now that the fight, we're into turbo, we're later in the season, we actually don't do the second jails on dirt side anymore. We're killing the fight in like 5:30 or whatever now. So I'm going to change this text to yellow, and I'm going to just type in left here, and left star. So the reason I'm doing this is I use the star marker for our left, and that way the text is yellow, and it's also saying left is star here for me. And then I can come right back here, and I want to make a second one at the exact same moment. I'm going to say right, and we use the orange marker for right. So I'm going to change this to orange. And I'm going to put right orange. And we can test this. Boom. Right.
Orange.
Sometimes you're going to have things that are super complicated and long, and you don't want to type out like a long sentence. So using the colors, at least for me, helps me know that, like, okay, I turned that to that color for a reason. It must mean something, or obviously you would know why you did it. It'll just remind you, like, oh yeah, I did that because it's orange for the orange marker, right? So you can continue to do that all the way down for every single mechanic of this fight. You can do it again for like the Goblin Guided Rocket, for example. Yes, like we talked about earlier, it's going to have an ERT setup to tell you to do it, but what it won't tell you is where to put it. So like the second one, center, and center on skull. I'm going to keep it white, and that will remind me. So if I ever get this, the first time I ever get it, I don't need my raid leader TL
center on
saying,
skull.
Like, hey, that rocket soak goes to the center on the skull marker, at least for our raid team. I just know it because I've already prepared for it. And then you can do the same thing with the double whammy shot and this. So if I want to make this a default, I can just go right back here. We put this on metal side for the second one as well, and then we put this on dirt side for the second one too. So we just do that, and now I'm set up there. The last thing is these Frost Shatter boots. So we went over these goals and how they work, and I have right and left here. But when you do these Frost Shatter boots, at least the way that we do them, is it's from the door you drop the first rocket at, so the door that leads you to Galley, as you look at the center of the room, so where Muggsy is standing before you pull him. So these are actually going to be reversed. So left, orange. This gets changed to orange. And then exact same moment, right, right, star, or yellow, or whatever works for your brain. And now I have that set up. So we continue along the line. What we do for these static charges when we go in intermission is we have our range DPS always play by the fire. So we say play by fire. I copy this, throw it in here, and I'm going to turn this red just as an alert to myself. And bang, there you go.
Play by fire.
And then I'm going to make this a default real quick. And before every single charge, we always go back and play by the fire. And just wait for the charge to go out. So now I have a reminder telling me to go do that. And then Unstable Crawler Mines is another one that's in the weak order packet. It tells you, like, hey, watch out for mines. Mines are spawning, whatever it might be. Frost Shatter Boots. Pretty self-explanatory how to deal with that mechanic. If you know this fight in any capacity, you're going to use them on the mines to freeze them at this point. And then Earthshaker Goals. So we have 4 different jails that are going to come out as I'm doing this video. So, for example, far left X. And we're going to do this. We use our red marker for this, so I'm going to keep it red. And then I'm going to go again and go left blue. And make this blue. And what I'm actually probably going to do is take off the Texas feature, because I don't want 4 things going off of my ear here. I just want a bunch of different reminders telling me where, if I get this jail, I'm going here to this marker. If I get this jail, I'm going here to this marker. So right triangle or green is what I would prefer to do. Change it to green. Done. And we have one more, and we're going to do far right moon. And try to find a silvery like color for this one. I don't know, maybe just do gray. That's fine. And if I were to do a simulation of this spot of the fight, it would actually pop up all 4 of those. They won't be stacked on top of each other. So just to kind of demonstrate to you what that is going to look like. If I just
CA plus trees.
See,
Play by fire.
Not in the same spot. But hold on a second. I'll stop it and I'll just make another one. Play by fire 2.
CA plus
and they're going to be
trees.
stacked on top of each other.
Play by fire. Play by fire.
So you have the ability to like make multiple on the same spot to tell you how to deal with them. And again, the reason these are changed colors is to remind me, like, hey, if I get this, I just see on the text on my screen which one goes where, and that's it. So obviously this fight has changed a lot with more damage. It would be much more complicated, but it would be the exact same thing I've already shown you how to do if you still did like the second mug phase, which just doesn't exist anymore. You just don't do these jails, you just skip them, with assuming you're not on progression. If you're on progression, you might still do them. But so that's how I personally would prepare for Muggsy. I didn't go into like using defensives and whatnot. The one thing that is also happening is, like, on this mindset, don't touch mines. Don't touch mines. And I'm just going to make that white text. Because we don't pop the mines on this last set anymore, just because we can just root them and kill the boss before they really matter at all. So, but yeah, essentially, that's kind of about it. We didn't get into like using defensives, using Healthstone, using Health Pot. Just like a quick thing without looking at any logs, what I would tell you to do is a good wall time, especially if you're playing Boomkin, is if you look at this right here, you can see 14 seconds is when the first mines spawn, and they finish spawning at 18 seconds. And this is literally 2 minutes away, 2 minutes and 1 second off. So if you're a class that has a 2 minute or less wall, you can use a defensive for both of these mindsets, and you really don't need to use a defensive for anything in between here, as long as you are being smart. The last thing that I would suggest for you to do if you're progressing this or just want to make your gameplay easier so you can focus more on your damage and your movement and less on your survival, is you can also put here like use wall or defensive or whatever term works for your brain. Because on this last jail set, you basically will have a very difficult time surviving if you do not use some sort of personal defensive there. And you could also be like, okay, if I get this double whammy shot or this spray and pray, shouldn't I be using a defensive? What most guilds do is they actually use externals on their players to do that. That's what we do as well, and that's built into our healer note. So we tell our players not to use defensives on those. But yeah, so that's how I prepare for Mythic Mugsy. I have requests from my own players like how I prepare for like every different kind of boss fight. So there's going to be more videos, hopefully shorter than this one, that's actually going to go over like how I would prepare for Sprocket, how I would prepare for One-Armed Bandit, how I would prepare for Galley. The other fights, like Rick, earlier, some people 3-tank this fight, so maybe there's not soaking assignments. It's just your third tank does 90% of your soaking for you. If you were going to make it a Rick reverb note, especially if you're like going to a 2-tank for farm now, you can make a note for this that basically just tells you like when it's safe to go soak an amplifier versus like, hey, you should get back to like go bait your next amplifier, whatever it might be, or go back so you can bait your next pyrotechnics, the barrels if you're a melee, something along those lines. So anyways, that's it for this video, guys. Thanks. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Just trying to help people get better. Again, if you have any ideas of anything you would like me to go over within WoW to help you get better at the game, I'm happy to do so. Thanks. Have a good one.